So this is going to be part two of the static contraction series. Um, Same thing as we go before. I have a goal of 2025 April, the end of April, where been starting this protocol since more or less November of 2024. The idea behind it is essentially can flexing statically, maybe with a little bit of range of motion, produce more or as much muscle growth, hypertrophy, strength as going to the gym. So that's my 6 month experiment. So let's get to part two. So right now we're gonna be watching things that support this theory, this thesis. Afterwards, we'll see what people of the dynamic portion of this have to say. But for now, let's see what Anthony Robbins and these two fellows got to say.
You've got all your fibers. You've got slow twitch working, you've got intermediate twitch, you've got fast twitch, then you've got your fast twitch glycolytic.
So in other words, if I can make a heavy enough demand, because it's all about force, if I get the heavy demand, I go straight to, I get all those fibers.
They have to recruit sequentially. And like the slow twitch will say, no, not enough, need more fibers.
We talked about this in video one.
Not enough, need more
but,
fibers. Fast twitch comes in,
looks
not
like they're
enough,
gonna have at least
need the top
7
of the
more
line.
minutes.
Boom, now all of them are activated. And it has nothing to do with range of motion. See, that's another misperception that's endured in health circles is that you need to do a full range of motion because if you don't, your muscles will foreshorten, or you will become bound, or you won't stimulate all your fibers. And that's just not true. The stimulation is simply a force requirement.
But are there any real considerations? I mean, when people just start imagining trying to lift 1,000 or 2,000 pounds.
Surprisingly, this is going to be the safest type of training you could engage in.
And the reason why is?
The simple reason is that your muscles and your joints and all the leverage systems of the body are in their optimal configuration. Injuries tend to occur, in fact, 99% of them occur, when you're at a disadvantageous structural position. For example, the exercise dumbbell flies people do to shape their chest. They go down and take a dumbbell which can weigh up to 60 pounds in some instances, and they hyperextend at the shoulder joint. And that's a pretty delicate area of articulation there with the shoulder. And that's how you're going to tear a rotator cuff. Your body is not structured to be handling heavy weights or even moderate weights in an exaggerated plane of motion. I mean, that's disadvantageous.
And the only reason they're doing that is because they have the theory that if I have the right angle, I'm going to develop this muscle more.
Despite the popular imagery of that in a magazine, you cannot isolate your muscle like that.
This is something that, people that are around 30, 40, 50, they see, well, maybe they don't, but you'll start thinking that how does one range of motion activate my muscle more if they're all active at the same time? So I would love to learn more, but my idea is in a similar basis that just flexing should build more muscle even because you're firing all the muscle. Let's see.
Even your chest, there's a thing called contiguous innervation in the chest muscle, which means when the chest is activated, it's activated.
Right.
You can't just isolate. I mean, I'm going to do this portion of my calf now with a calf raise, and it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Pete had a great analogy. We were laughing because we did a seminar once, and a fellow was asking us about muscle shaping. What about dumbbell curls to shape your biceps? And Pete said, well, when you can do Mount Rushmore and your biceps, you let me know. But women are the ones that have the most to gain from it because throughout their lives, they're not really encouraged to strength train.
Right.
They're not encouraged to. Maybe aerobics is about as much fitness as most women are told they ought to engage in.
Right.
With strength training, you talk about an unawakened giant in women. I mean, they have the same muscle physiology that we do. So, of course, their muscles are going to respond the same, but they've almost been not suppressed, but just it's all this untapped potential that's waiting there. And as soon as you marry that with proper strength training, the gains are immediate.
It is literally impossible to suddenly and unexpectedly be more muscular than you want it to be.
Right.
It can't happen. It's like
That's because they just don't have the testosterone to be able to build the muscle.
even for a man, you cannot suddenly and unexpectedly become more muscular than you wanted to be. Oh my God! My arm is 4 inches bigger around than I wanted it to be. It won't happen. It's no more likely than me tossing the football around in the backyard and suddenly and unexpectedly becoming Joe Montana.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just not going to creep up. It's not, boom.
Relax.
So let me come back to you guys for a second. So if we want to build the strength, men want to build size.
Right.
And size comes with strength. I mean, you can't have increased size without increased strength, I guess. So unless you're doing something artificial, obviously, to bloat yourself up. You're a big guy, and you're a good-sized man, but there's a definite distinction between the two of you. We know you're shrugging 1,000 pounds.
Right.
What happened if, let's say, your bench press or...
Well, my bench press, I've never been, I'm small boned. I'm not a particularly big person genetically. And my top bench, I've never cracked 300 pounds on a full-range bench press. That was, 285 was about my limit. And with that, I was arching like a Gothic cathedral when I did it, So when we started training with the short-range training, I was anticipating, well, maybe I could support 300 pounds. I've never been able to press at full range, so 300 would be great, and I'd feel pretty good about myself. Well, within, I'd say, 5 weeks, I was doing 595 pounds for reps. So I was amazed with my little joints that there was absolutely zero problem in terms of no strains, no pains, certainly no injuries. And my muscles were fully capable of working in that range. And as by way of analogy, what we said in our first book was that if you're going to push a car out of a ditch, the last thing you want to do is put your hands back here, or go down to a full squat position. Because how do you generate power there? You don't. Your power is all in your last 2 inches of extension. And why is that? Well, that's where your muscles are in their strongest range. That's where your leverage-wise, you're in your optimal configuration, and that's how you generate your power. So if you could provide overload in that strongest range, it must be superior to something that's in your weakest range.
So what we're really talking about is maximizing your genetics. You're not, Franco Colombo, for example, had a different length of arm, the length of skeleton, so his muscles had a completely different shape than if you look at Lou Ferrigno or Arnold Schwarzenegger or somebody else.
Everyone has an innate potential, just as they do mentally. I mean, you have an innate potential mentally, and everyone has an innate potential in terms of strength and muscle size and shape and all the qualities that go with it. But so few people know how to train to realize that, and unfortunately, conventional equipment does not allow you to maximize what your potential is.
So we're really talking about awakening the muscle within.
That's better.
There's a book title. Let me write that down. That's a book title.
Awaken the strength within. It really is awakening the strength within, because the strength is there. We're just not using it.
The average person walking around is using, when they do something strenuous, they're using maybe 20% of their capability, 30% at the most. The average person could be enormously stronger.
But you know what's interesting is you look at somebody like Peter Goski, he says that all the breakdowns he sees with people's pain is because of a lack of use. That we don't use the muscles. We overuse a few muscles and we don't use the others. So we're so weak that where people get hurt is bending down and pick up something off the floor and they hurt their back. And in seminars, I ask people all the time, is that how many of you have back pain? And you get 70% of the room, and you have people in the room that are in their 20s and people in the room in their 40s, It's amazing that we are such a weak culture because we don't make demands. So this is really a way in my mind to make every part of you stronger so that you function better. But also I think there's a huge change in self-esteem when you do two things. When you be the strongest you've ever been in your life, when you do something very few people have ever done, lifting a weight, etc., you look better than you ever have before, and you also know you're smarter because you're doing this in a couple of minutes. Now let's talk about overtraining, because this is one of the secrets to this whole process. I know that when I talked to Mike Mentzer, he brought up the fact that he said everyone has a certain genetic need for light or the ability to deal with light. If you're an albino, you can take very little sunlight. If you're African American, you can take an immense amount of sunlight. Right. But what's interesting is while you're out there getting that sunlight, the difference between a tan and totally destroying everything you've done is a few seconds beyond what you're supposed to do. And what happens here, if I'm reading your study, and if I'm understanding this right, is overtraining is not just wasting your time. Overtraining is destructive, and overtraining happens literally in a matter of seconds. So can you explain, how do we get overtrained? What makes that happen, and how soon does overtraining occur?
Well, overtraining occurs the moment you go back into the gym too soon. I mean, if you accept the edict that is prevailing in gym and magazine recommendations that you start out with a 3-day-a-week program, or you do a 3-day-a-week program, for example, that's going to lead to overtraining probably within a week. But you're going to keep at it because that's what it says. That's what you got to do. So you go in there and you feel tired and sluggish and you really don't want to work out, but you're going to go through the motions, and no way are your reps or weights going up. But geez, if you can at least match what you did last time, you're going to be happy and you know you've had a workout. Right. But that's overtraining. It's the very moment that you cease to make progress, you're overtrained.
And that's your test, isn't it?
Absolutely. The minute your numbers don't go up, you're overtrained.
Your progress has to be progressive. Remember how you make the muscle grow. It has to be progressive. So when you go back in the gym and you can't improve all of your lifts, you came back too soon.
So when you say the measurement is the increase in weight or the increase in time.
Exactly. Work in the unit of time. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's one or the other. Either the weight went up or the time you could hold it went up.
So either way, you can measure that you've gotten stronger. And if you haven't gotten stronger, then the body hasn't recovered yet.
Exactly.
And so you're getting in the gym too soon. So now you're tearing down. I don't know if tearing down is the right term because I know that's used and it's not really accurate.
Right.
But you're going into your reserves.
Right.
So we're gonna see. They don't really have any more videos, but we'll see if we can find more to these fellas. I try to click on it, but it's obviously not coming through.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So let's see what happens elsewhere.